Psychohealthology Summit 2018. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Dr. Eva Detko, and my guest for this session is Sifu Anthony Corajais. Sifu Anthony healed himself of clinical depression, low back pain, anxiety, and chronic fatigue using the ancient Chinese art of Qigong. Since then, he has helped thousands of people from all over the world to use Qigong for their own stubborn health issues. And today he runs a popular website with over 150 free articles about Qigong and Tai Chi. And he is also on the board of directors for the National Qigong Association. And Anthony's international organization, Flowing Zen, offers retreats, certifications, and online classes. So Anthony, welcome to the Psychohealthology Summit. It's an absolute honor to have you with us. I am just so excited that you've agreed to come here and talk about Qigong. And obviously we will touch on Tai Chi, but Qigong is going to be the main focus of the discussion. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I sort of gave away in the introduction that this was obviously a modality that has helped you a lot with your health challenges. Tell us a little bit more of that story, and also maybe you could explain your title because that's something that people may not be familiar with. So where does this come from?
Sure, I'll start with the title so people don't get confused, because sometimes people think the Sifu is part of my name, which is not my name. It's a traditional honorific or title, and really it just means teacher. So for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, that's the title given to people who teach Qigong, Tai Chi, and similar arts. And as you'll see in our conversation, I'm not the most traditional person around. I did learn in a traditional manner. I really am big on bringing this stuff into the modern world and into the 21st century. I've abandoned a lot of other traditions, but I've held on to this tradition of the title Sifu because I think it's really helpful for my students. Then the question about how I got into Qigong, that's a bigger story. So in a nutshell, this started in my 20s. And what it started with, I was actually really gung-ho and super interested in martial arts. I had discovered karate in college, and I just sort of fell in love with it. I grew up as a classical musician. My parents are musicians. I started playing the violin at age 5. I was never allowed to do martial arts because we were afraid that I might hurt my fingers. So when I got to college, I was like, too bad, Mom and Dad, I'm going to do what I want. And I signed up for a karate class. I fell in love with it. I turned out to be really good at it. I applied the discipline that I had from playing the violin to karate, and I did really well. I earned a black belt and just, a little bit quicker than most people would have. And I really fell in love with it. So that's the nice part of the story. However, what started to happen was I started to develop severe back pain, and I was in my early 20s. So this was a problem. And I started to look for solutions to that back pain. And for me, the natural place to look was in the bookstore. The books that I started to look at and read were Tai Chi books. Tai Chi was, it was something that I had heard of. I had heard that maybe it was a martial art, but of course I was doing karate, which is very tough and very muscular and all about fighting. And I didn't really believe in this Tai Chi stuff, but I read the books anyway because my back was really hurting. But in these Tai Chi books, they kept mentioning something. They kept mentioning this thing called Qigong. I had never heard of Qigong. And what's funny is 25 years later, most people still have never heard of Qigong. Maybe they've heard of Tai Chi, but rarely Qigong. But Qigong seemed more up my alley because it was not a martial art, and I was not looking for a new martial art. I already had karate, and I was really into it. So I was looking for a healing art, and specifically a simple, streamlined, easy-to-learn healing art that could fix my back and maybe fix this depression thing. And that was my entry point into the world of Qigong. From there, I searched, of course, as you can guess, I searched for books on Qigong. They were not so easy to find. I traveled to New York, Chinatown. I read. My journey eventually led me all over the country and then eventually to Asia to learn from masters there. And that's it in a nutshell. That's how I got into it.
That's very interesting. And you started sort of telling us a little bit about what it actually is, because you said it is not actually a martial art as such. So maybe we could go into more details about what it is and also what it means. What does the name Qigong mean?
Yeah, so let's start with what does it mean? What does the word Qigong mean? So in Chinese, Qi means energy, or really your vital energy. Gong means cultivation. So Qigong, when you put the words together, it really has this meaning of the art of cultivating your vital energy. There are many different kinds of Qigong. There are basically three categories. You have Qigong for self-healing, Qigong for martial arts, and Qigong for spirituality. We have Qigong that is for martial arts in order to better your martial arts, but the moves themselves are not martial arts. So just very quickly, I'll get as much as I can on camera here, but a simple exercise like this, which we call lifting the sky, is a wonderful Qigong exercise. It's one of the first exercises that I teach to my students, but it's not a martial arts technique. It's really a health technique. I would put that in the category of self-healing. And the movement itself is just a piece of it. But certainly the movement itself is not a martial arts technique. So for example, some people think that there's all these secrets hidden in the form, and that's not, there are secrets in the world of Qigong. It's a very secretive art, but this is not some whack. You're not striking somebody with that technique. It's a health technique. Martial arts Qigong is designed to better your martial arts. Spiritual Qigong is designed to better your spiritual cultivation, really of whatever type. And what I, of course, was interested in was the self-healing stuff. That's what I was first and foremost interested in. And that is the bulk of what I teach. I have learned all different kinds of Qigong over the last 25 years, but the bulk of what I teach is self-healing Qigong, sometimes called medical Qigong, because it's a cousin of acupuncture. So that doesn't always make sense in the West, but when you understand that traditional Chinese medicine is sort of a broader term for, it's like an umbrella term for a lot of different arts, including acupuncture and Chinese herbalism. And Qigong is actually one of the branches of Chinese medicine. So it was recognized a long time ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, as a form of medicine, in the sense that the medicine comes from within, that by practicing these movements, it's not just the movements, I'll talk more about that later, but by practicing these movements and the breathing, and most importantly, by practicing the meditative aspect of these exercises, you get the body to start healing itself better. You get your qi, your energy flowing better. And when the energy is flowing better, the body's natural self-healing systems sort of kick back in, and the body starts to heal itself, which is exactly what happened to me and what has happened with thousands of my students.
That's great. Thank you for this explanation. That's an awesome explanation. So just sort of going on from there, you have mentioned that it's really about self-healing, which obviously makes perfect sense, because that's most Eastern modalities. That's what they're all about, really. And as you mentioned, it's sister of acupuncture, and people will be familiar with those sort of modalities. So I'm hoping that it is making sense. But perhaps you could make a further connection between, people with chronic illness and how specifically that could benefit people with autoimmunity, for instance.
Sure, of course. So when you look at the list of even just the proven benefits of Qigong, because there's been a lot of research, especially the last 10 years. When I first started teaching Qigong, there was not a lot of research. There was some, and it was pretty good, but now there's just a lot of it. And you look at the benefits, relieving chronic pain, depression, anxiety relief, improving your balance, better cognitive function, lowering blood pressure, improving your cardio, sleep, improving your sleep, increasing bone density, relieving chronic pain. Did I mention that? Anyway, that was a big one for me. Chronic pain and depression and anxiety were the big ones for me. But when you look at this list, it seems crazy. It seems like, well, how could one thing have such a wide range of benefits? And in fact, that's something they have to explain all the time because it gets confusing. It's not that Qigong is a panacea per se. I'm a big believer in complementary care. So I went to acupuncture school because I think that that acupuncture and Qigong complement each other very well. However, the reason why Qigong is so effective with a wide range of different things, including autoimmune disorders, which autoimmune is not just one thing. Of course, you know this, that it's a wide range of different things with sometimes confusing causes. It can be confusing, especially from the Western perspective. So here's the simple way to think about it. In fact, this is kind of close to the traditional Chinese way of looking at it, which is quite simply that what Qigong does is simply supercharge or get the healing energy flowing. So your body, even if it's not healing now, is capable of a lot of healing. Now, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to heal or that you're definitely going to heal. And of course, practice, as you mentioned, we'll talk about that, but practice is important. But let's just talk theory. There's the capability of healing. So for example, with depression can reverse itself without medication. I'm not saying don't take medication. That's not my job. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. But for myself, I found relief from depression without medication. Same with back pain. Without medication or surgery. My students find relief from a wide range of things as they practice Qigong over time, because sometimes I just call it your healing juices start to flow better. And when you really get your body healing the way it was sort of designed to heal, well, that's when amazing things can happen. And especially when you combine Qigong with other things. In fact, that's when I see a lot of the magic really happening in my students, when they combine it with really whatever things you have already found helpful. When you add Qigong to the mix, it has this synergistic effect that isn't just one more thing. It seems that Qigong has this effect of unlocking the healing power of a lot of other modalities, whether it's massage therapy or acupuncture or chiropractic or therapy, psychotherapy, or any kind of therapy. If you add Qigong to the mix, I think you'll find, like a lot of my students have found, that it really has this magnifying effect on everything you're doing, and it can help you to get the results that I think you deserve with your healing.
Yeah, thank you for emphasizing that, because I'm always keen to do that. I'm always keen for people to understand that when they find a great modality that has wonderful properties, just like this one does, that doesn't mean that they can abandon everything else that they've been doing. And that doesn't mean that they're throwing everything out the window and now they found this great new thing and that's going to fix everything that's ever been wrong with them. So thank you for emphasizing that. It is really about enhancing all the other things that we are doing. But ultimately, basically, we designed for survival, and the body has got an amazing ability to heal. We know that. But at the same time, we do need to meet it halfway. And so this is what we're saying here, is that you still need to put the right food in your body, et cetera, and do all the other things that do enhance healing and don't interfere with that, rather than actually go the other way and do all the things that interfere with healing and then go and do Qigong and hope that it's going to counterbalance that. So that's not what it's about. It's about enhancing. So that's fantastic. I'm glad you talked about that. And you were talking about the different types of Qigong. So we're talking to the autoimmune community. So am I right in thinking that the medical self-healing one will be the most appropriate for this community?
Absolutely, no question. And in fact, I start all of my students on the medical or the self-healing version of Qigong. Maybe 80% of what I teach is self-healing Qigong, and 100% of what I teach to beginners is self-healing Qigong, because it's so important. Not just, like you said, I love what you said about meeting halfway. So you're meeting your acupuncturist halfway, for example, and you're contributing to your own health, just as you would be contributing by what you eat and all these other things that you could do. Qigong is fantastic because you get to take a role in your own healing. So yes, we're absolutely meeting people halfway with our practice of Qigong, but there's something amazing about Qigong that becomes like a master key. And I've tried to explain it for years, and don't have the ultimate explanation, but I know the effect. The effect is that Qigong is like a master key for many people in terms of unlocking many other healthy habits in their life. So by adding a Qigong habit, especially the self-healing version that we're talking about, medical Qigong, by adding a medical Qigong habit, even as little as 2 minutes a day, which is nothing, but 2 minutes a day, I find my students are able to unlock other healthy habits. For example, a lot of my students say, I just started eating better after I started practicing Qigong, or I started going to the gym more often, or I started feeling more positive about myself, which is important. All these little changes, which when you add them up over time, they make a huge difference in your overall health. And I don't know exactly what it is. My best guess is that Qigong really helps to build willpower, and it helps to build a positive identity of yourself. You start to see yourself, well, if I'm the type of person who practices Qigong even just for 2 minutes a day, then I guess I'm also the type of person who eats well and exercises more and, sleeps better. These things, it just becomes this positive feedback loop where you're unlocking all these other healthy habits, which, as you know, are just so important in getting results, especially with autoimmune disorders.
But it's true, though, that when we pick up a positive habit, it sort of makes us feel like it's an act of self-love and we're doing something nice for ourselves. And so once we're doing this, why don't we add to it and do something else as well? So I can see how that could get somebody on the upward spiral that is really positive. But I'm also thinking, well, if we're working with this vital force that is the Qi, isn't it that we becoming through doing those movements and through connecting, we are sort of basically better connected to ourselves. We are more aligned with ourselves. Do you think that plays a role in terms of how, we are more centered, we are more connected, and therefore, we sort of more inclined to look after ourselves better because of that alignment? Do you think that could be one of the elements of that?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense that it's not just the Qi, this vital energy flowing. And for people who have trouble with that, if you don't understand it or you don't believe in it, just imagine all of the systems and fluids in your body flowing better. That is a perfect analogy to what the ancient Chinese masters were talking about. So all of that, your blood, your cerebrospinal fluid, your lymph fluid, everything is flowing better. Well, what does that do? It creates a better environment biochemically in your body. But then on top of it, remember that Qigong is a mindfulness practice. Now, people sometimes forget that this is a moving meditation practice. So we get all the benefits of mindfulness and meditation. And that's some of what you're tuning into, that when the mind is quieter, in my tradition, we call the constantly jabbering mind, we call that the monkey mind. It's like this monkey just running around, can't focus on one thing. When you quiet the monkey mind, even a little bit, you don't have to become a Zen master, just quiet the monkey mind a little bit and life is less hectic. You are not so clouded by negative thinking because those thoughts have been let go. So a lot of that self-deprecation that we all have, where we beat ourselves up. Oh, I don't deserve to be well. Oh, this stuff always happens to me. Oh, I deserve the pain that I'm in. Things like, that's a negative feedback loop that we don't want. Mindfulness is really the antidote to this. And the nice thing about Qigong is that we hit a lot of different categories. We get to move and stretch and flow with the exercises. We get to breathe, which is so important. We get to work on the Qi, but we also get to meditate while in motion, which is one of the things that I find students most love about Qigong, especially students who've struggled with other kinds of meditation, especially sitting meditation, but even something like yoga, because yoga, let's be honest, yoga is wonderful, but it's a little bit more challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And that would be what I wanted to actually ask you next. If people here are watching and they may be currently struggling with discomfort in their body, be it in the joints or muscles or just generally all over body, aches and pains, and they're thinking, well, great, but this is still movement, and I feel my mobility is restricted, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable to even think about it, etc. So what would you say to those people? Because I know that it's a very gentle way of moving, but perhaps we could explain that a little bit more, that, just in case people associate it with things like yoga and therefore some more sort of drastic poses and touching the toes and doing various things in Lycra and all of that sort of thing. Perhaps you could actually talk about the movement itself and its suitability for people with restricted mobility and also obviously pain.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm going to actually tilt my camera up. I can't get too much in here, but let's see what we can get. First of all, a lot of the stuff could be done seated. So I'm on a stool here. So for years, I worked in a wellness center. I owned a wellness center where we had an acupuncturist and a chiropractor, massage therapist. So we have a lot of different people of all different levels of health coming in. So the beautiful thing about Qigong is it can be really adapted to suit your particular situation. So for example, this exercise is called lifting the sky. Normally it would be done standing, right? But of course we can just adjust it and do it seated on a stool or a chair or whatever. But what if you can't move your left arm? Okay, no problem. You just do it with one arm. What if you can't lift the arm up all the way? What if you got limited range, either with one or both arms? Well, there are so many exercises in the repertoire that we can do something different, like this one, which is called separating water. Maybe this one would be better. So we can find a different technique that will suit your need. Sometimes if there's a serious lack of mobility, we can start with some sort of breathing method technique or something simple. But here's the thing, here's the secret that is confusing to a lot of people. With Qigong, the physical movement of the exercise, and there are many of them, many different exercises, but you can just take one exercise, and the physical movement is the least important thing that we do. So I tell my students to feel free to butcher the form of the exercise. So for example, with lifting the sky, people very often, they want to get it just right. I'll do it standing so that you can see. Let me tilt my foot. I'm not teaching it. If people want to learn it, I have freebies. They can learn it for free. But just to give you an idea of the exercise itself, but people want to do it perfectly. They want to try to copy me and do the form perfectly. But the form of the exercise is the least important thing. So I really encourage them to butcher it. All of the exercises can be adapted. And once you understand that the form is the least important thing, it is incredibly freeing. There's tremendous freedom in Qigong that we don't have in Tai Chi. Of course, you could do Tai Chi seated in a chair, but you might as well just be doing Qigong, because Tai Chi, these moves in Tai Chi are martial arts moves. So everything you're doing is either a block or a throw or a punch. It's a martial art, even though it's done slowly, and even though it's good for your health, it's still a martial art. With Qigong, we don't have to worry about that. We just can do the moves, forget about the form, adjust it, and focus on the things that are more important, like your breathing, like the energy flow, and like the meditative aspect. Those things are what matter most, and those things are what most people need to focus on, because what are you interested in? You're interested in getting results. You're interested in healing. And the big mistake that people make is that they think that the healing comes from doing the postures exactly. I promise you, it does not. The healing comes from the breathing and the meditative aspect of these Qigong exercises.
That's perfect. I think that a lot of people needed to hear it, probably, because, people are worried about the coordination and this and that and the other, and that they're not going to look exactly right or do it exactly right. So, yeah, this is an excellent point, that's really not what the focus is here. That's not the important thing. And you started talking about the differences between Qigong and Tai Chi, which is also very interesting. Would you say that overall, the Qigong movement is actually more straightforward and easier? Because I have done bits of Tai Chi here and there, and some of those sequences are not exactly, for somebody who is poorly coordinated, they're not exactly easy to do, some of them. So would you say that overall Qigong is sort of friendlier in that respect?
Absolutely. There's no question that, especially the medical Qigong that I teach, is so much simpler than Tai Chi. In fact, a lot of my students, I'm guessing hundreds and hundreds of them over the years, have come to me and said something like, I tried Tai Chi, but I didn't really have a good experience. In fact, I found it stressful. And the reason they found it stressful is because it's like diving straight into a sophisticated form of dance, like ballet or something like that. So of course it's a stressful process. And those students who tried Tai Chi but had a negative experience, what I want to tell them and tell anybody out there, if you tried Tai Chi and you didn't like it, okay, please try Qigong. I think you'll find that this is what you were looking for. And that's what a lot of students tell me. They say, I feel like I've been looking for Qigong my entire life. And try it and see, because these movements are so simple that you can forget about the movements. That's what we're actually after. We're after doing a movement. For example, we might do a movement like pushing mountains over and over and over. You don't even have to worry about the next move. All you have to worry because you're not really worried. You're focusing on your breathing, relaxing, meditating, flowing. And these are the things that get you into that tranquil state that is precisely what we often miss when we're trying to learn Tai Chi.
Yeah, I thought as much. And so let's talk a little bit about the recommendations for practice, because as with anything like this, clearly the more regularly we do it, it's not about, I'm guessing, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm very much getting like you're going to say something like, well, it's not about you doing this for 2 hours once a month. It's going to be much more effective, much more beneficial, and much more healing if you're going to actually do a few minutes, but you do it every day, correct?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And with Qigong built into the tradition, and this is something that I really try to help my students with, is this idea of practicing every day. In my particular type of Qigong, the basic routine that I teach is about 10 to 20 minutes long. So it can take, depending on what you do, and you're going to go at your own pace, but it's going to take anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And it's kind of remarkable how much of an effect we can get in just 10 to 20 minutes. You feel amazing afterwards. So compared to other arts where they ask you to practice for half an hour or 2 hours a day, this is much more accessible. However, don't underestimate that. If you're thinking, 10, 20 minutes a day, that's no problem. It's harder than it seems for a lot of people, especially if they don't have a regular daily habit. And this is a lot of what I teach. I do a lot of blogging and writing and teaching on the subject of consistency and willpower and discipline, and helping students to get their practice to be a regular thing. So I even have, for example, a 2-minute version, which I call the 2-minute drill, where I'm just trying to get students to, even if it's just 2 minutes, to try to do something every day. And of course, many students struggle with this. They don't practice every day. They practice 3 days a week in the beginning or 5 days a week. But the good news is that it can be done by anyone, regardless of their age, their health or lack thereof. They can develop the proper habits to get to the point where they're practicing Qigong for 10 to 20 minutes, really every day. I mean, I struggled with this for a while in the beginning. I've blogged about this a lot, but basically I went for an 11-year streak without missing a single day. And if you think that that's just because I'm some sort of freak, I am a bit of a freak, but that's not why I was able to do 11 years in a row without missing a day. It's because I built my practice systematically, starting with 2 minutes a day. And the lesson there is that it can be done. And I've had lots of students go for a couple years without missing a day, or even if they miss a day, they practice, let's say, 300 days a year out of 365. That's still pretty good. If you can get to the point where you practice 300 out of 365 days a year, you start to see all the many benefits of Qigong, and the practice becomes precious to you. Becomes something that you really you look forward to every day. It becomes a wonderful daily habit. You can't imagine life before Qigong. And that's really my goal for a lot of my students. I want to help them and hold their hand and teach them and get them to the point in their life where Qigong is so precious that they have forgotten what life was like before Qigong. And, they very often, my students will say things like, thank God for Qigong because it is such an important part of my life now. And these are very often the students who struggled the most in the beginning.
Yeah. And basically what happens there is that it may be a challenge for some people to build this positive habit to begin with, but because you're seeing the benefits then they sort of exceed the resistance or the excuses. And once you're at that point, you will continue, and it is much, much easier to do that. And of course, for somebody who may not have a lot of mobility and they know that they need to be moving in order to heal properly, but yet they haven't maybe found the right type of movement for them, if they connect with something like this and they develop this even a few minute a day practice and start feeling the benefits, then I can totally see why people want to hold on to that clearly. It's just a question of getting to that point, right? That's the trick, to do it for long enough to experience enough of a benefit, as you said, for you to then not even be able to imagine. So if you don't do it, there's something missing. It doesn't feel right because it's such a precious part of your day. Yeah, I can see how that develops for sure. It's just a question of getting to that point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a question of helping students get there. Some students they have experience with other things, so they'll get there faster. But my experience teaching a wide range of students from many different countries, many different cultural backgrounds, different ages, different disorders, different personality types, is that it really can be done. And this is part of my mission in bringing Qigong into the 21st century, abandoning some of the old traditional ways that really don't serve us anymore. For example, some of the traditional ways of teaching, they don't serve us in the 21st century. But the good news is that it really can be done. And Qigong is so interesting and enjoyable to practice. And there's still lots to learn, even though it's very simple. You can start slow, but there's plenty to learn over the years to keep you interested, or you can move into Tai Chi later. So like you said, if people are looking for that something, they know they need a meditative art, or maybe they tried yoga or Tai Chi and it wasn't quite for them. Well, Qigong is worth a try. And I want you to try Qigong, and I want you to fall in love with it. And unfortunately, sometimes the way that Qigong is taught, because of some of the traditional stuff and cultural stuff anyway, sometimes the way that it's taught, it turns people off. And that breaks my heart because I'm so in love with this art, even after all these years. And I want people to have a positive experience with it. I do my best to give people a very positive experience with Qigong right from the beginning. But, whoever that is, whether that's me or somebody else, keep searching at least a few tries with Qigong until you find someone that's going to give you the taste of Qigong that you deserve, which I hope you can feel that even after over 2 decades of this, I am still passionate about this art, and I want to infect people with this passion. Take some of this. There is something to this Qigong thing. This guy he was really excited about it. What is that excitement about? Why is he so excited? Go find out for yourself, one way or another, even if it takes a few tries, and get a feel for Qigong and why people like me are so madly in love with this amazing art.
Yeah, I tell you what, I love your energy. Your passion is coming through without any shadow of a doubt. It's wonderful. I'm feeling it here, even though we're so far away from each other. So that's phenomenal advice. I really like this, and all I wanted to add to that is that it goes for anything, whether it's a therapy or whatever else. You do need to resonate. To me, whether it's an acupuncturist or a psychotherapist or whatever, it needs to be you need to connect with that person. Your response and your benefits will be greater if that's the case. That's for sure. But also I wanted to remind people that what's so beautiful about this is that, particularly when people get sick, they know that they have to fix their diet and fix their lifestyle, and everybody's telling them that they need to be doing meditation or some sort of stress relief modalities or techniques, and then they need to be moving. So I just want to remind everybody that you're actually doing 2 in 1 by doing Qigong. So really, what else can you ask for? And then you've got those extensive, wonderful benefits that come with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why a lot of my students love it so much, is that there's a lot of bang for your buck with an art like Qigong. And a lot of people, it's exactly like you said, that they know they should be doing something like this. They just haven't found it yet. And it is sort of amazing that, after all these years, Qigong is still not widely known. There's a lot of reasons for that, mostly because it was kept a secret. So it's coming out, and I believe that things are changing, that, Qigong is about to explode in popularity. The world is ready for it. The information is out there. We have the internet. There's so many different ways to learn now that, I don't think it'll be long before Qigong is a very common word. But I guess my suggestion is you don't need to wait. You can start now. You can start learning Qigong before Oprah starts talking about it. It's just such a fantastic thing. It gives you so much bang for your buck. It saved my life. I didn't really get to that part of my story, but it's an important thing. That's why I'm so enthusiastic, because it literally saved my life. And if you understand the severity of major depressive disorder and how many people it kills more people than most people realize. And I was at that risky age. I was in a definite danger zone. So I feel like Qigong saved my life. I found it at the right time in my life. I definitely needed it. It saved my life. I found it early compared to some, but when you find it, you find it. When you discover Qigong, that's when you're ready. There's a nice saying in the Zen world that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Whether I'm that teacher or somebody else is that teacher, or maybe Qigong itself, just the beautiful art, is the teacher that you've been looking for to teach you how to get your own body healing. I hope you'll pursue it a little bit. Stick your nose into this Qigong thing, look at it, try it, experience it. And like I said, I hope you will fall in love with it.
Fantastic. And so tell us a little bit more about the accessibility. So, of course, you've got resources, you run retreats. Tell us more about that. And also, if somebody feels that what they really want is this face-to-face tuition rather than online, at least to begin with, then maybe there's some resource you can point towards where people can find a reliable teacher such as yourself in their area, who will be able to give them all of those options if their mobility is restricted or whatever. So what have you got to say?
Yeah, so my advice is to start by educating yourself, kind of the way that I started. And I suggest you do that. Of course, I'm going to recommend my own blog for a couple reasons. One, because I have a ton of information out there, and it's free, and you can just start reading on my blog, on my website, which is Flowing Zen is my organization, flowingzen.com. I think it's on the back of my shirt. You can probably see it there. And just start reading. There's a start here button, start reading, and start to familiarize yourself with the art of Qigong. Now, I'm going to shamelessly plug my blog because I think it is a very good resource in helping you to educate yourself about Qigong, what it is, what it isn't. And it's going to help you in your next step, no matter what it is, whether you learn from me or you want to find somebody locally. If you're going to find somebody locally, you need to be armed with information, because there's a lot of confusion out there in the world of Qigong, and not all teachers are created equally. So again, my mission is to make you fall in love with Qigong. So start with information. Start with my blog. You can start with my freebies. I teach online now. I actually had a brick and mortar Qigong studio for almost 10 years. And I had hundreds and hundreds of local students, and it was a big and popular studio. I closed it a few years ago because I was being called online because I started experimenting with teaching online, and more people wanted to learn from me from all over the world. And what I started doing to make up for closing my studio was I started certifying instructors. So I have a bunch of local instructors here in Florida who took over, and they teach now. And I've recently certified some more instructors from several different countries and from all over the world. So, I recognize that sometimes people want to learn face to face, or like you said, sometimes it's about finding the person that you resonate with. Maybe you want to learn from a woman. Totally fine. I think that is, we need more teachers, and I'm actually very proud that I've certified a lot of female teachers. We need more female teachers and practitioners in the world of Qigong. So if that's what you want, if that's what resonates with you, then find the right teacher, but educate yourself first. Check around my website and my free resources. We have a Facebook group too, which you can join. But one way or another, if you can start with information, I think that's the way to go.
And of course, you're actually going to do a little taster for people attending this event. So actually, what a great opportunity for them to experience you as a teacher. And therefore, if that's what resonates, great. They can go to your website and do your online classes or online courses or whatever it may be. So that's fantastic. I'm really excited for that. That's going to be awesome. And you're going to do it specifically for the community here watching this. So that's even more brilliant. Anthony, thank you so much. It's such a great conversation. You just shared all of this information, such a wonderful, enthusiastic way. Absolutely loved it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to what we already shared? Maybe there's some, final words of wisdom?
Final words of wisdom. My big message, which I've been telling students for a long time, and which I will probably be telling them for a long time, is really simple. You can do it. You can do something like Qigong. It might take you a couple tries. You might need to find the right teacher. But here's what I know from my experience, both with myself and literally thousands and thousands of students. You can do it. You can implement an art like Qigong in your life. And as a result, you can get these healing juices that we were talking about flowing again. And it really can make a huge difference in your life. I can't express that enough. I'm not saying that Qigong is going to cure you of everything that ails you. That's not the message here. But the message is that Qigong is amazing. And you will say this yourself one day. You'll be saying it if you just discover it and go a little bit into the art. And that's the wisdom that I'll end with, is this beautiful old Japanese phrase, which is what I tell my students early on. It basically just says, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And you may fall down many times with your practice or whatever, your discipline. But all you have to do is get up one more time than you've fallen. So if it's 7 times, you just get up that 8th time. And that is really good advice, that when it comes to something like Qigong or making lifestyle changes with your diet or a million other changes that you could make, you can do it, and you really can transform your health and your life in ways that will surprise you, like I've done for myself and like my students have done for themselves.
That's wonderful. Really, really great. And people are thinking, well, actually, online tuition is great for me. And, I can follow that. And, you've got the resources available, so they can go right to your website and actually follow good quality training and tuition. But if people are feeling, but I just wish I was doing it with other people, then why not invite some friends around and go to Anthony's website and do it as a group? That's another idea, how you can have a bit of a social aspect to it as well, and you can have good quality teaching with that. So that's my idea. So thank you again. It's just been phenomenal, as I said, and massive appreciation on behalf of myself and everybody who's watching. Sifu Anthony, thank you so much for being here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for watching. If you